Okay, I have 10 a.m. We're going to start the meeting. Again, thank you for all joining us. This is part of our Rexel Tech Talk Tuesdays. And today we're fortunate to have William Walk, one of our power specialists who handles drives and MCCs with us, and he'll be presenting on drives and troubleshooting. And William is a Marine. I've learned from him there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. And William is with us, and he's in his second year, and we're very excited to have him. I think a lot of you do know him, and he's really hands-on. In fact, today his presentation will be pretty technical, more so than he's going to be demonstrating virtually or from his house, showing you he has a system there and the things that you can do with Connected Components Workbench for troubleshooting with his free software available from Rockwell. And you can use the trending function in the components, Connected Components Workbench to help. So, but before we start, a few housekeeping. This is being recorded, and I ask that you be on mute for the event. And if you have questions as anything he's presenting, I ask that you use the chat function. Go in there in the chat and put a question, and we'll answer it at the end. We'll open up at the end. We'll unmute everybody, and you can ask any questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend William, and this should probably last a half hour to about 45 minutes, depending on the amount of questions. It will not be an hour. So these are meant to be quick, fast meetings. So I know William just moved the slide. I also want to remind you, especially in today's world, right, if you want to be connected to us, if you haven't downloaded our mobile app, from rexelusa.com. It is available both in Apple and Android, and especially if you're out in the plant and you need to look at things, and some of those things will make sense today. William's going to show you some of the mobile things. So with that, William, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks for the introduction, John. Hey guys, thanks for joining me here on Rexel's Tech Talk Tuesday. We're going to be going over trending inside of CCW, or Connected Components Workbench. So let me go ahead and flip this camera around and get this on me. All right. So if we take a look at my little demo that I have set up here, I also have a 3D printer running in the background. I got a PowerFlex 525.
William, we're still seeing the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Let me go ahead and...
There you go. We can see you now.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look here. I got a PowerFlex 525 inside of my demo. I'm also running a 0.5 horsepower motor with an incremental encoder. So with Connected Components Workbench, it is a free software, but if you want to connect to your drives, you're going to have to get unless you're going through Ethernet, you're going to use the 1203 USB. And with the 1203 USB, I'm going to go ahead and move my camera over here to get you guys a little closer. And I'll clear the safety fault on my drive. With the 1203 USB, you're going to want to connect to the DSI port, in particular with the 525. And with the DSI port, it's going to look like your standard Ethernet port. Also with the DSI port as well too, if you're connecting to something such as our architecture class drives, you're going to want to use the 7-pin connector, such as PowerFlex 753 or 700 series. Another thing to also remember whenever you're connecting with the 1203 USB, take a look at both sides of your connector. You have the shiny side and you have the matte side. You're going to want to have the shiny side up facing the blue for the 1203 whenever you connect to it. So for today's demonstration, we're going to be displaying a couple of things here. One of these is some of the common parameters that I like to take a look at when I'm trending live data in Connected Components Workbench. Let's go ahead and get connected here. And I'm going to switch my camera over to Connected Components Workbench. Can you guys see inside of CCW? Or John, could you answer that?
Yeah, you can. It's pretty small. I don't know if you can make it bigger, the screen, possibly.
It's about as big as I can make it.
Okay.
So now that we're connected to our PowerFlex 525, let's go ahead and click the Discover button. And if we go down to our workstation, we will see 1203 USB Data Highway Plus. And we're going to go through our DSI port. Let me just give this a second to initiate, and it'll automatically connect to the drive and download all of your parameters from the drive to your computer. Sometimes it can be a little bit finicky. And it looks like I froze. Go ahead and try one more time. So John, anytime this happens, I have to restart. It's a pretty common problem with CCW, so I'll have to come back onto the call.
Okay, you have to restart it?
Yep. So give me 1 second, guys. My apologies for the hiccup here.
Again, I appreciate your patience here. I know William wanted to do a real hands-on demonstration showing technical things from his home, and I appreciate him doing that. But as we know, we all know with technology, there tends to be issues. So again, he's thinking this should probably last, not this hiccup, but the total presentation should be probably now less than a half hour. So hopefully him resetting it will only take a minute or two, and I appreciate your patience. Thank you. I also want to remind you that I did just put in the chat now that if you have any questions on specific drive issues or other troubleshooting suggestions that you want William to address or us to address, you can use the chat right now, and we're hoping to at the end answer all the questions, or at least get back to you if we can't answer them, and follow up with you directly on it, specifically around drives. But again, we appreciate your patience, and hopefully William will be back here in a minute or so as he reset his demonstration. So again, appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Hello, gang. This is Ben Casto. I just wanted to fill some time with a comment about RexelUSA.com. We have a light version of Proposal Works that's in the website. If you look at the left side of the menu, there's a Rockwell configurator, and that helps you kind of put together the pieces to a system. So if you ever are in our website, take a look for the Rockwell configurator in the left side of the menu. Looks like William's back.
Sorry about that, guys. I am back. Sometimes connected components workbench can be a little bit finicky, and you'll have to restart in order to get it to work again. But I've got it operating again. So I'm connected to my VFD right now. As you can see, I've got just a little 1/2 horsepower, single phase, 110 volt in, PowerFlex 525. And you can see my peripherals here. I've got a dual Ethernet card, and I'm connected with my 1203 USB to DSI. So we take a look at trends. We can add a couple of bits of data here, take a look at some live information. So let's go ahead and add trend. Okay, sorry. Let me add this to my project. Let's upload our data to it. Give that just a minute. And now we can add some trending to our project. And mind you, this is I'm using version 13 of Connected Components Workbench. So we have a couple of properties we can look at here. We can see traces, sampling, and some triggers that you want to add into this. What I like to do for my sampling, I like to get samples every 50 milliseconds or 20 samples every second. You can change that depending on how you want to view your data. And you can set your time, or if you want to take samples, as well as how long you want to be trending your data. So let's go to traces. A couple of common parameters that I like to take a look at whenever I'm troubleshooting VFDs, or if I'm attempting to troubleshoot them or look at it. I like to look at current. So let's go ahead and add our output current to this, as well as voltage across the DC bus. So let's go ahead and add these two, hit apply, and hit OK. Once we have these two bits of data added into our trending, we can go ahead and hit the play button to see what kind of data we're getting. So as we take a look at parts of this here and there, you can see here at this time frame, at 10:15:27, my DC bus was measuring my DC bus was measuring 310 volts, and I didn't have any output current there just because my drive isn't running at the moment. So let's start trending again. And let me go ahead and start my VFD. And as we can take a look here, as I have the VFD running, you can see that I have some output current and a change across my DC bus voltage. Now this is being displayed at live. And I want to have these overlaid to, just makes viewing simpler, so that way I'm not having to scroll around, and leave automatic or scaling to automatic. But as you can see there, this is what I have trending so far. So let's go ahead and simulate a change. Right now I have a 3D printed brake that I'm going to apply to my VFD, and we'll take a look at the output current to see what kind of changes we'll get.
William, I don't know if you're planning on showing your camera, but it's not on you right now showing the demonstration, but you're showing the software. Okay.
Yeah, I'm only going to be showing the software for this portion.
Okay, thank you.
So let's go ahead and start trending again. I've applied my brake to my VFD. And you can see there, as I apply the brake, you can see the values change in trending. Hold that for a few more seconds just to reflect. And take note of the data as I release the brake. So as we take a look at the different time frames, you can see here is where I started to apply the brake. This is with the brake applied and the VFD not turning. And then you can see a change in the data as I let off the VFD. Take a look at my output current with the brake applied. And as I let off of the brake, now take a look at my output current, as well as a surge inside of my DC bus. But that's going to range. So let's say you wanted to take a look at the data and upload that directly to an Excel sheet. Let's go ahead and export this. I'll go ahead and name this Project 91. I'm going to change my screen share over to my Excel sheet. And as you take a look at my Excel sheet here, I have all of the data that I had trending from CCW copied over. So I can easily compare and contrast every 50 milliseconds of the changes that the VFD is making. So if we scroll down and we go ahead and find where I applied the brake, let's move these over so that we can see what we're looking at better here. So we have our DC bus here and our output current. As you take a look at this time frame here, you can see that I applied the brake and we had an increase in our output current. And as I held the brake on there, it held steady. And once I let off the brake, you can see we still have the brake applied here. You can see at these time frames, I dropped from 0.26 amps back down to 0.14, which is what I have my commanded frequency set for, or output for output amps. So let's go ahead and switch back over to Connect to Components Workbench. Let's make a different trend. Again, I typically want to baseline your output current. Let's go ahead and add our commanded frequency. Let's also add our output voltage. And let's say I didn't want to flip back and forth between looking at the motor nameplate data, and I just wanted to compare and contrast all of my values in my file. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select my motor nameplate hertz, my full load amps, and my volts. Let's add that. And let's add my output RPM as well too. Hit apply and OK. Let's go ahead again and hit play and start trending my data. Right now I'm running at my commanded hertz of 20. I'm going to have these overlaid just for simplicity. Now take a look at the data here. You can easily compare and contrast, say, your motor nameplate hertz as opposed to your output voltage, your commanded frequency. Let's go ahead and go back to the live data, and I'm going to go ahead and apply my brake again. And on this portion too, I'm going to increase my commanded frequency to 80 hertz. I'll go ahead and increase my output hertz. I'll hold that. And now I'll go ahead and let off the brake. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that data. Take note of our values here before I applied the brake and increased the commanded frequency. Commanded frequency was 20 hertz. Output voltage 72.6 volts. Your output current was 1.14 amps, and our RPM was rated at 600. So if we take a look at peak here, now look at our values. Output voltage almost 200 volts. Our output current was half an amp, and our output RPM 1611. And as I reached my full 80 hertz for my commanded frequency, I reached that 2400 RPM. But I have my brake applied, so how would I know that my motor's actually running at that? Let's take a look at one more example. So let me go ahead and add the same configuration that I had last time. My motor nameplate volts, hertz, and full load amps. Add my output current. I'll add my DC bus. And then let's add my encoder speed. Hit apply. Press OK. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this data. I'm going to change my commanded frequency down to 20 hertz. And I'm going to change my view to overlaid. As you can see, my encoder is picking up 593 RPM. Now let's go ahead and apply the brake again. Once we baseline again, I'll release the brake. Now let's go ahead and release. As you can see in this point, this is where I started to apply my brake. And now take a look at your encoder speed. Now I can see that I'm not spinning it. I don't have any speed at all on the drive. So some of these are some pretty good parameters that you can add in from CCW just so that you can monitor data, namely DC bus voltage and your output current. You'll typically see a rise in your output current depending on the load of your VFD. Let's go ahead and export this to another Excel. We'll overwrite our current data, save this as project 91. And let me go ahead and switch this over to my Excel.
Hey, William, a few questions. Is
Sure.
components, the version you're using, is that the most current version of Connected Components Workbench?
As far as I'm aware, yes. And for now, it's the most stable version,
Okay. And
which is why I use it.
it is free. The other part of this is it's free to users.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you're connected over the Ethernet, you don't have to use like a 1203 USB. You don't have to buy that.
Okay. Thank you.
So let me go ahead and expand my data here, just so I can see what values I have going on. So this is again where we baselined at 20 Hertz. And see where, yep, and here's the data where I applied my brake. Now this is where you want to change your sampling times, perhaps lessen that. As you can see here, between these two time frames, I have a sudden drop, and I can't see the approximate change on that. So you might want to lessen your sampling times accordingly. Switch back over to CCW. And these are just a couple of the parameters that I like to take a look at when I'm monitoring live data for my drive. Do we have any questions about that?
There's nothing in the chat yet.
Okay. So in a nutshell, that is essentially training your data inside of CCW. It's very easy, it's very streamlined. All you have to do is connect to the drive, add your device in there, click over into trends, add your trending to your project, and then add your parameters accordingly to which ones you would like to monitor. The ones that I mentioned in this little presentation are a good baseline for what you want to go off of. Those you can find a majority of the data that you're going to need in order to troubleshoot your problems or issues. All right, and that's all I got for CCW.
Are you going to show the how do you look at a drive and scan it?
Yep, that was my next part.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
No, you're fine, John. So let me go ahead and pan this onto me. So if you don't know, if you don't use it already, we do have the Rexel app. It's a mobile app that you can download from the App Store. It works for iPhones, as well as Androids. If you're ever in the situation that you're down per se, you can always take a look at the side of your drive here. Right now, this is a PowerFlex 4M, and you can see this little 2D scan code. Let's drop the phone. And you can easily, with the Rexel app, once my camera would focus, there we go. Once you have that scanned, you can easily see here, it's kind of hard to read because my camera is not focusing, but at the top here, it automatically adds my VFD with all the specs based on that barcode. So that way you're not having to look back and forth and trying to copy anything in case you're in a situation where you need to order a drive immediately. And the Rexel app is very easy to get set up with as well too. That's it. That's all I got, John.
Great, William. You kept it under a half hour. That's awesome. I know people right now are pretty busy, but anyone, I don't see any notes or any questions in the chat. If anyone wants to unmute themselves, they can right now and have a question for William or I or any of the people on the call. Anybody have a question? Either on component workbench, connected components workbench, or any of the things that William showed today. We have one from Steve Gross, William, about what the parameters look like.
Could you reword that, Steve? How exactly do you want to view the parameters? Like inside of CCW, looking over it line by line?
In the software, yep. Oh, you can see that. Okay.
Let me go ahead and go back to CCW. Just go ahead and click on your PowerFlex 525 here for your devices. And it's as simple as going over to your parameters and just viewing them this way. Very easy. Connected Components Workbench makes viewing parameters, uploading and downloading and saving your programs very simple. As you can see here. Any other questions?
No, William, there isn't any other ones in the chat. Oh, Steve again. Can you change them in CCW, the parameters? I guess you can change them in CCW?
Yes, you absolutely can. The only thing, though, is you can change them in CCW. You just have to have the drive off. So let me go ahead, disable my drive. Let's say I'll change my motor nameplate volts. So I'll just change that to 180. Just so as long as you don't have your drive running, you can change your parameters. Any other questions?
Before I said anything, I was waiting for Mr. Gross to see if he had anything. Oh, he said he's all set. So anyone else on the call? Any other customer or clients that have a question for William regarding drives? Hopefully this was helpful, and again, William is available. Oh, Bruce has a question. How does this compare to Drive Explorer?
So, to be honest, I haven't been able to get a copy of Drive Explorer, but I had worked on a laptop previously that did have Drive Explorer, and I prefer Drive Explorer more. It takes a little bit more learning, but it's my preference. But if you have people just getting started, then CCW is a great starter for them.
Can you explain Drive Explorer maybe for some of the people? What is it, William? And is it a pay for package? Do you pay for it?
From what I can see on the Rockwell website, Drive Explorer is no longer available.
Okay.
But it's basically the predecessor to Connect to Components Workbench. There's a multitude of Drive tools that were available before Connect to Components Workbench was made.
Okay. Kevin has a question. Does Studio 5000 connect to PowerFlex drives?
Yes, it does. And you can do that with add-on profiles too, very easily. The only thing that you have to do is just ensure that you're using the correct, adding the correct specifications of the drive into Studio 5000, and you make sure you reflect the same firmware version that's on the drive. And you can figure that out whenever you have the drive in idle or standby mode. It'll scroll along the front of the HIM module, and it'll tell you what firmware version and all that it is. Yep. Any other questions?
I don't see anything right now, William, but I wanted to thank everybody. I know, again, we're all busy and appreciate, this is a popular subject. William, if you I know William is very available right now. He is extremely busy. I shouldn't say that, but if you have an issue, you want to reach out to me or William, we'll try to get back to you on something that you might add, either related to other type drive questions you might have, or even on power, right, on MCCs. We welcome working with you. So we are going on site back to customers. So we are following the CDC guidelines, so we can come on site if need be. We were earlier in the pandemic, we weren't, but now based on requests from customers and the issue, we do come on there. We can do a lot virtually. We invest in some tools. If we can get into your system and look at it, we can do remotely, but I think we all would agree for technical issues, sometimes, especially when you get more complicated with motion and servo drives, it's best to be on site. So again, I wanted to thank everybody for their time today. William, did you want to wrap it up or anything you want to add?
No, I don't have anything else to say, John. Thanks again for the attendance, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys if you have any questions or need any assistance with drives.
Thank you, William. Great presentation. Thank you all for attending.